Hello, children. Are you sitting comfortably for tonight's bedtime story? Then we'll begin. Once upon a time, there was a little germ called Adam. And I have a picture of Adam here. Adam was a cute little fellow. And that's Adam. Adam was a cute little fellow. And he loved to explore, but he was on his own. He's a lonely little chap. He had no friends, no family, just the first of his kind. And he loved to explore, and he liked to fly around, but he didn't have wings himself. So he used to fly by bat, and that was his preferred method of flying. And he used to use British Airways quite a bit to do this. One day, was flying over a wet market in China. This is a place where the Chinese buy their food, but this little germ did not know that. But he was fascinated to see so many endangered species in this wet market. And being an endangered species himself, he was only one of a kind. This is an ideal place to set up home, he thought himself. I'll start a family there. So he left the bat and dropped into the wet market. Now he landed on a pangolin, which was a surprise to this little germ, because he thought a pangolin was a musical instrument and he'd always wanted to play one. But it wasn't. It was an endangered species of animal. What was it doing in a wet market? Never mind. Lucky for the little germ, it happened to be there. Very unlucky for the pangolin, as it turned out. No, that's another story. Anyway, this little germ Adam decided to start a family. So what he did, I have a picture here. I forgot to show you Adam on the pangolin. There. That was where he set up and made his home. Right. Anyway, Adam deciding to start a family, and in the best tradition of fairy stories, put his hand into his chest and pulled out what he thought was a rib, which was actually a genome, but to all intents and purposes a rib, and he created a beautiful lady germ, whom he called Eve. So Adam and Eve then, who were very happy together, started a family. They had a son first called COVID, and then a daughter called Iris. And I have a picture here of the little family. There you go. That's Adam, Eve, COVID, and Iris. Now, sadly, Iris disappeared. Nobody ever knew what happened to her, and she was never heard of again, which is why nobody has ever heard of Iris the virus. But COVID went on to be a healthy young chappie, and he loved to explore, just like his dad Adam. He loved to get out in the world. So, but sadly, Adam and Eve disappeared as well. This left COVID on his own. Now, Adam and Eve, little known to COVID, went on to a completely different fairy tale, which everybody knows about. But COVID was all alone in the big wide world. And all he had for company was where he lived, Pangolin. That's what he named the land he lived, because it was a pangolin. So, but he surprised himself. He could replicate. He could make lots of other little COVIDs. Wow. But he decided it would not be fair if he ruled them, even though he started them. And he did not want to be king, so he decided that they should all be kings. So every little little virus was crowned, and they became coronavirus. That means crowned virus. And a picture here of all the little coronavirus. And that's Adam at the front. Isn't he cute? Anyway, so life became quite difficult for the virus living on the pangolin. And the biggest challenge was yet to come. And this came in the form of a Chinaman. Now, he's about half the size of a normal human being, but he had a voracious appetite. And to a little virus, he was huge, a giant. And while little COVID was wondering where the other half of this guy was, this Chinaman, who happened to be called Goliath, picked up the pangolin with COVID on it and ate both the pangolin and the virus. This later became known as the battle between COVID and Goliath. And there's a picture here of that battle where little COVID was getting eaten by Goliath. That's not the end of the story though. Thankfully, little COVID survived inside Goliath, inside the Chinaman, where little COVID grew up fast. At the age of 19, I have a picture of COVID on his 19th birthday. That's COVID at 19. Mind, they weren't actually years. Viruses grow up very, very quickly. You know, it's not a year, it's only hours, and I don't like another year. But that was 19 virus years. So anyway, from that time forth, he was known as COVID-19. And his ambition, just like his father, was to go out and explore the world. And he decided, I want to conquer the world. I'm only very small, but I did beat Goliath, so I think I should go out and conquer the world. Much to his surprise, it only took 4 months. He was quite good at conquering, you know, and his word of his conquest spread around the world in the media very, very rapidly, but not quite as rapidly as he spread around the world. And one of the myths that went in the human population about COVID was that he only entered bodies through the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. But that was proved wrong. He infected somebody called Boris, and this is the first time COVID-19 had entered an arsehole. So that surprised the world. But not only that, COVID managed to do things that no ordinary human could do. And he wasn't an ordinary human, he was a germ, he was a virus. But COVID managed to reduce the pollution in the world by 50% in 4 months, which is a lot less because the human population had been trying to do it for decades before that, and it was still going up. Very successful little COVID. Now, the story hasn't ended there, it still continues. We don't know whether it's going to have a happy ending or not. But what we do know, if you think about it and think about it deeply, this story that I've just told you is just as credible, if not more credible, than Muhammad flying from Mecca to Jerusalem and back in one night on a winged horse. And on that note, children, I think it's time to go to sleep. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.